Call this meeting to order. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First is the approval of the memorandum of the November 15th, 2021 regular meeting. A copy has been posted. Any questions or comments on that?
Mr. President, I have a comment. There's three corrections I'd like to make. On page 5, there were three minor changes. One of them is you spoke on the pathways, and it said halfway on there. We should probably just go ahead and correct that. And then on same page 5, number 20, Brian Traylor made some comments, and it says Melton is making the comments, and we just need to change those.
Okay.
Amy, if you can make those.
Is that
Page 5.
page 5 trailer, just for clarity, that's the property that we purchased?
Two down from that, where it
down
says
from that.
Melton. It says Melton, has the house been cleared?
Oh, and that's actually
That was
trailer.
there, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'll correct that.
Thank you.
Heather, can we approve with those corrections, I assume?
Yep.
All right. Anything else, Craig, on that one?
Nope, that's it.
All right. I would make a motion then to approve the memorandum per the changes requested by Councilor Melton. Second by Councilor Burke. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The memorandum of the November 15th, 2021 regular town council meeting as adjusted by Councilor Melton is approved by a vote of 4 in favor, 0 opposed. Next, we got requests to speak. I've got 4 requests to speak. Here's a quick reminder. You've got up to 3 minutes to speak. If you can give your name and address for the record, I will then start your clock after that. It'll be a 1-minute warning. And first up, we've got Roger Burris.
I'll watch it.
Sure. First up, we got Glenn Hoagie.
Evening. For the record, Glenn Hoagie, 11724 Promontory Trail here in Zionsville. I'm speaking on item 6E, the gateway petition before you. My company controls parcels B and C of the gateway area. It's under contract with Barbara Hanson under a long-term contract, and it constitutes about 40% of the gateway area. I've commented, I've met with the consultant, I've attended some of the sessions, I've sent some comments to the Plan Commission, to the council, interacted with the town, been engaged, probably not 100%, but very following the progress of this study. I feel like my goal is to emphasize whether or not it can come to fruition through developers that would bring projects. And my overarching mission or statement tonight is it's not the case. There's not enough density. There's not enough of a project that's listed in the study today to attract developer attention. And this is, we've had about 20 folks come to us with ideas. Since the study started, that dwindled to about 6. And then over the last couple of weeks, actually, basically those folks have dropped out. I think they're still waiting to see what happens with the zoning. But there's just not enough density. About 2/3 of Ms. Hanson's property is targeted for 16 townhomes. It's not enough density. It's 1% tax revenue, which the town should be concerned about as well. And I just feel like I owe it to the town in an economic development study to make them aware of that. The other thing that became evident over the last week really is that there's some assumption the landowners have been in agreement with the study. I think everyone was just kind of waiting to see, but we've not represented that we agree with the results. I'll just leave it at that. I own the DNR permit. I'm a resident of Zionsville. I want to see the property developed, and I'm willing to cooperate and offer the permit, and as long as it's used for a good project. I attended the IEDC breakfast on Thursday where Commerce Secretary Brad Chambers spoke. And I don't know whose quote it was. It wasn't his. He represented it was not his, but he said, cities and towns in Indiana must aim high. If they aim high, they may miss. If they aim low, they'll likely hit their target. And I'm representing that we're aiming low here. There's a faction in the village that.
Thanks, Glenn. Appreciate it. Mr. Burris?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Roger Burris, attorney with offices at 410 West Oak Street in Zionsville. And I'm here on behalf of the property owner that Glenn was referring to, Barbara Hanson, who could not be here tonight. She hired me in 2017 to help her with the sale of her property. And shortly thereafter is when Glenn Hoagie and some other people got involved. And they've done a lot of work trying to see something happen here. There had been 2 failed attempts to sell this property before I got involved. When I got involved, your planning department was basically begging for somebody to come up with a good plan. And at that time, there was a developer who really didn't have a good plan. So we didn't think that was going to work. But as far as the gateway study, as Mr. Hoagie mentioned, my client is certainly not excited about the prospect of having property that, had a value of X number of dollars 5 years ago, and then it was rezoned from B3 and B2 to VBD in 2017. President Garrett's well aware of that. And I know some of you were not on the council then, so a little bit of history I think would be good, but then it was rezoned to VBD. We were okay with that because we knew that it was going to be a PUD development. That's the only way this property was really going to get developed. And now with the gateway study, which there are some very good things in the study, like the traffic, the community space and green space preservation. But I think based on what I've reviewed and what Mr. Hoagie has presented, I think it's very important to look at some of the details and what it means in terms of the tax revenue and how things are going to be developed. I mean, if the town is going to take on $3 to $5 million worth of the infrastructure, then maybe that would make it developable the way the gateway study suggests. But it's also potentially going to cost my client a lot of money because she's not going to be able to sell her property for what it was worth before. So that is her concern. And like I said, there's good things about the study. But I think you should really take your time and consider it, and also consider the economic development aspects of it before you make a decision. Thank you.
Thanks, Roger. Next, we've got Allison Goodwin.
Good evening, members of Town Council. On behalf of our membership, which includes nearly 500 local businesses, the Zionsville Chamber of Commerce Advocacy Committee and Board of Directors strongly support the petition to consider the incorporation of the Gateway Study as an amendment to the Town Council Comprehensive Plan. We are grateful that the Chamber and its membership have been included in this project from the beginning, with the listening sessions as well as the thoughtful planning for this project. Economic development and strategic planning for our town are important priorities for the Chamber. This plan presents a great opportunity for smart infrastructure improvements, economic growth, and more diversification for our town's tax base. An immense amount of planning went through this initial plan for the Gateway area, and we are thrilled to see the project moving in the right direction. We know this is just the beginning for an ambitious development that will transform the current empty lots into thriving gateway for our town. We look forward to the continued momentum of this project and the economic impact it will have on our community. We urge you to approve this resolution and give a unanimous favorable recommendation from the Planning Commission and continue the good work on the Zionsville Gateway area. From the Zionsville Chamber Advocacy Committee and the Zionsville Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors.
Thanks, Allison. Last, we've got Magdalena Sater.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Magdalena Chatter, and I'm a resident of Zionsville for almost 20 years. My address is 295 Beechwood Lane in Zionsville. My comment today pertains to the consideration of the airport area strategic land use plan. And I have been following discussions on this topic through several online and in-person meetings of the airport and town representatives with Zionsville residents. In all meetings I attended, I had numerous accounts of how private residents are already affected by increasing airport traffic, and numerous comments expressing concerns and questions how further increase in traffic will affect quality of life in Zionsville, natural environment, and altogether change the very characteristics of the area which made this suburb so attractive to live in. The voice of the residents was unanimous and strong and expressed the lack of support for the expansion of the airport operations and for this plan. The airport strategic use plan is biased towards the support of the airport development. It provides little, if any, protection for the quality of life for the Zionsville residents. And the residents will be negatively impacted, not only in the close vicinity of the airport, but in the larger Zionsville area as well. The plan provides no support for the existing developments or houses. And a good example is the land use plan proposed for the area west of Michigan Road. The plan limits the area to the estate residential use, environmental overlay district, and this area will be adversely affected, including property values, when the phase 2 runway expansion is completed. The patterns of the corporate traffic will significantly shift to the west of Michigan Road. This area represents also a beautiful, diverse nature habitat, yet no analysis of the environmental pollution impact, including noise, was provided for this or any other areas. The recent vote of Plan Commission was not as clear-cut as the record shows. During the first attempt, there were 2 attempts. When Josh Feder put forward the motion in favor of approving the plan, there were no seconds, and neither the president of the committee moved the matter to a vote. The voting had to be attempted again to pass. This does not really project that the committee had a confidence that this is the best plan for the town. In summary, I would like to express very serious concerns how the input of the private residents was handled and disregarded, and the interests of a commercial entity were put ahead of residents of the town, the natural environment, and without regard how the plan will impact the future of this wonderful residential area. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the request to speak that we have. Amy, is there a mayor administration update?
I had been told that the mayor would have an update today, but it looks like she was unable to join us. Deputy Mayor, do you have any? Okay, so I'm afraid not tonight.
Well, that would have been good. There's lots of good things on the agenda today, but maybe next time. No old business, new business. First, we've got a Zionsville Fire Department union update with Steve Hayes, president of IAFF Local 5195.
Good evening. Thank you, President Garrett, and councilors for the opportunity to come and share with you this evening. My name is Steve Hayes. I'm a lieutenant with the Zionsville Fire Department and also the local president of our Firefighters Union affiliate here in Zionsville. I want to start out and just tell you a little bit about the local. I really haven't had an opportunity to really share much about it in this forum, so I wanted to take that opportunity. The Boone County Firefighters Local 5195 is an affiliate of the International Association of Firefighters and is a multi-department affiliate representing firefighters from the town of Whitestown and the town of Zionsville. The Zionsville district represents 78% of our current career firefighters from ZFD. Our mission statement, I'd share that with you as well. Our mission is ensuring a united voice for our members through unity and leadership, political action, education and training, building better lives for our members and their families by advocating for firefighter safety, job security, and a quality retirement benefit. And I'm going to take an opportunity just to share some recent projects and what we like to consider some achievements and accomplishments of the local. In October, which some of you are going to be aware, Councilor Melton, we held our very first IFF Fire Ops 101, hosted that at our Boone County Training Tower, and we're fortunate enough to have Councilor Melton, Councilor Plunkett, Councilor Choi join us. as well as our Director of Communications, Amanda Vila, and President of Fanimation here in Zionsville, Nathan Frampton. They all joined along with several other participants, and together they participated in multiple fireground training activities. Some of those included a forcible entry and search, an auto extrication rescue, an EMS cardiac arrest scenario, and then a live fire evolution where they actually had the opportunity to come into a building under live fire conditions and experience firsthand some heat and some fire. So we had really good positive reports from all the participants. They really seemed to enjoy that, and it gives them President Garrett, you've experienced that in the past as well, but it gives a great opportunity to see kind of firsthand what we do on a daily basis as firefighters. So I wanted to take an opportunity again to thank you all for participating in that. Just stepping back a little bit further, last year, our local formed a Boone County Peer Support Program through a partnership with the City of Lebanon, the town of Whitestown, and the town of Zionsville. Our Boone County Peer Support Team of trained psychological first aid providers offer care to all firefighters and EMS providers in Boone County. We work under the direction of clinical psychotherapist, Dr. Robert Smith, who is also actually a retired career firefighter from the city of Indianapolis. And we train with Dr. Smith on a quarterly basis. So I did want to mention that it's a wonderful program, and we're very fortunate to have that. Several of your Zionsville firefighters participate as members and care providers on that team. And the roster represents 4 Boone County fire departments. Also, something a little newer that I wanted to share is the formation of a new 501c3 by the Boone County Firefighters Foundation Corp. It exists to support Boone County firefighters and their families in the event of a tragic line of duty death, significant injury, or other extreme loss. And we're very excited to actually bring that to fruition. We've been working on that for a little over a year. And we were fortunate enough also to just recently receive a very nice donation from the former Zionsville Volunteer Board. So we very much appreciate that. The last 18 months or so have been challenging for our firefighters and paramedics as we have worked and continue to work through the COVID-19 pandemic. As you all know, this has been a very long and ongoing thing, and it still continues today. I can speak personally of that. I know we're still transporting positive COVID patients, and we see loss of members of our families and things as well, still with COVID-19. So I can't begin to tell you the number of community members that have stopped by the firehouse or sent things to the firehouse, cards and just notes of appreciation. And it's very great to have that support. This town has always been very supportive of our fire department, and we are very thankful and humbled by all of that, all those well wishes and gifts and cards. So I wanted to say that as well in this forum, and to be able to thank our community for those well wishes. One of the things that's been an important topic the last several months with the fire department has been staffing. As you all know, our fire department executive administration asked for some new positions to be added to our department for the upcoming year. Our union leadership, as well as our department executive staff, have been meeting with members of the mayor's office as a focus group to look at some options to assist with the staffing need. ZFD is also working with an outside consulting company to put a new strategic master plan in place. And we are nearing the end of that process now. And there are many facets to the process or the project. However, addressing staffing is one of those components. So we're anxious to see where that leads us in a plan for the next 5 years and where our staffing levels need to be. We also have been working with the IFF and looking at some things services that they can offer us as well that will help us also determine what should staffing be like for the town of Zionsville for the fire department, and how do we maintain that over the next several years and keep it to the level necessary.
Steve, real quick.
Yeah, sure.
When will is there a projected report back on that?
On the strategic
On the
plan?
recommendation on the plan?
I'll be honest, I'm not sure. We just met last week, the steering committee, and due to the addition of the staffing component, I know that is pushing us back a little bit. I would have to consult with Chief Engorder or some of the other staff to find out a more concrete time, but.
So well into probably 2022.
I'll be honest, I'm afraid to say, I don't want to misspeak, so I'd have to check. One of the things I wanted to share too is if I asked Chief Engorder, and I have, if I asked you, President Garrett, if I asked Mayor Styron, I think I would get the same response. But what is the number one asset of our fire department? I think everybody agrees it's our firefighters. Our position on the issue is this: firefighters operate the safest and most efficient when every seat on our fire apparatus is filled. We want a minimum of 4 firefighters on our engines and our ladder every day. This allows our firefighters a better sense of personal safety as they perform on the fire ground, while most efficiently being able to mitigate whatever emergency we're on at the time. So that's really our stance on the issue, and we certainly hope that in the very near future we can achieve that. And I think these studies will lead us to that eventually, and so we certainly look forward to that. Some of the other top initiatives that we've been working on, one of those being a merit system. The Indiana Code IC 36-8-3.5 provides a model for a merit commission that provides oversight of hiring, promotion, and discipline for fire departments. The board makeup provides bipartisan commissioner appointments by the executive of the municipality, the legislative branch of the municipality, and the firefighters. This has been a priority goal for several years. In July of this year, the firefighters participated in a secret ballot vote to request by referendum that the town council act upon our recommendation to adopt the state model merit system. No action was taken by the council at the time, but we do certainly extend an offer to look at this again, and would like to work with council leadership to look in the future at being able to add this benefit for our firefighters. Another goal and initiative that is a priority for us is longevity pay. Longevity has always been the benefit that supports the experienced and the senior firefighter. Fire service hiring processes in general are very competitive. When Zionsville Fire gets the opportunity to hire high quality candidates, we then want to make sure that we can retain those firefighters. By offering longevity pay, we reward firefighters for their years of service to the town of Zionsville. One of the statements that I have been making over and over since the beginning of this year is we need to figure out how to attract the highest quality firefighters and paramedics to Zionsville, and then we need to retain them. Accomplishing this takes effort from not only our municipal executive, town council, and our fire department leadership. However, it also takes our firefighters, and I have been asking our operational firefighters to embrace this as well. The culture that we create within our firehouses is equally as important as the efforts we expect from our administration and our town leadership. Longevity pay is just one benefit that can be added to show appreciation for service and assist in retaining our most experienced firefighters. Finally, I just want to take an opportunity to thank this council, the mayor, and the staff for working with us and supporting our members with quality fire apparatus, firehouse quarters, equipment, and competitive benefits. We are fortunate to have a lot of quality people at Zionsville Fire Department, and if we continue to foster our good relationship as leaders, support one another, I think we'll continue to grow in the future in a positive way. So I appreciate the opportunity. I'm happy if there's any other questions, I'm happy to try to answer if I can.
Steve, what percent of the firefighters are in the union?
78%.
78.
Within Zionsville.
And you mentioned a couple of priorities there, the merit board, which, we've been having discussions on, which I understand. If the priority is to go from 3 firefighters, we were at 1.4 firefighters, correct? We went down to 3
Correct.
to get back to 4. If you think about the general perception of the union membership, is longevity pay more important to those members, or is the staffing levels more important? I realize they're both important, but if there's a finite amount of money, is there a sense of which one is the better one to tackle first?
Yeah, I think it's going to depend on who you ask as far as our membership, honestly.
But is there a prevailing, I mean, I realize that not all 78% will say it's A or B, but is there a prevailing?
I really
Few?
don't think so. They both get talked about equally. I really think they're both equally as important, and really they play into each other, you know, being able to fill those seats on those fire trucks, but also making sure that we can keep the folks that we currently have. You know, that also keeps those seats full. So
Got it.
yeah, I'm afraid I don't think I can really put one over the other. I think they're equally as important.
The 501c3 you mentioned, is there a way the public can learn more, or a place to go to donate, or has that been set up yet?
I mean, we have the ability to take donations.
Their website,
We
though,
don't
yet,
have a
or-
website up and operating. It's under construction currently with a company to do that for us, but I'll be sure and communicate that as soon as we have that available and ready to go.
I know that there was a request for more firefighters that didn't make the budget. I think this council has had conversations about, well, we passed the budget to get it passed because not passing a budget was not reasonable. But I do want to keep re-looking at that and seeing if the budget we pass, is that really the budget we want? Is there money that we could reallocate towards that goal of increasing those staffing levels or the longevity pay? I also kind of want to talk through this idea that I've been reading in adjacent communities, which is a lot of our communities have been giving public safety, both firefighters and police, one-time bonuses for what they've had to do during COVID. And a lot of that's come out of the CARES money that we as communities are receiving. And I just wanted to throw this to the council. I don't think we need to make any certain decisions today. We should take some more discussion, but you know, the staffing stuff, I'm willing to be somewhat patient on this master plan, as long as it doesn't take too long, because I want to start addressing that at some point. But you know, if the mayor comes to our next meeting, perhaps there's a discussion we can have about what that might look like. You know, if that's money that we can take from CARES and or the American Rescue Act or whatever, these manna from heaven we keep getting from the federal government. And just, I guess, you know, this year, I think it was appropriate. I think everyone agreed the 4% raise was appropriate across all our employees. I would also be the first to admit the 1% raise that we did the year before was a mistake. In hindsight, right? At the time, we just did not know what was going on. We did not know money coming in. But I also sort of look at, you know, I got to work from home. You guys got to work from home. You guys didn't get to work from home.
My
right?
second home.
Yeah, exactly. So I would like to sort of throw out that challenge to the administration, to this council, to say, is that something that we can do? It's a one-time thing. It's not a recurring thing. It's the right thing to do. It's, so I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts on that, but.
I mean, I would be in favor of it. I mean, it's a matter of looking at the dollars and what's available.
Yeah,
and how
for
much,
sure.
I think they've earned it.
doing some math, but yeah,
Yeah.
I would be 100% behind it if we have the money.
Okay. Well, hopefully we can do that conversation together with the mayor and figure some of that out. Any other questions for President Hayes? Okay. Well, thanks for coming today.
Yeah,
I
thank you so
appreciate
much.
it.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for everything what you guys do. Next, we've got the people of Zionsville for the Aesthetics of Zionsville PZAZ presentation with Greta Sanderson, our chairperson, their chairperson.
Good evening. Thank you, members of the council, for the opportunity to give you an update on the activities of Pizzazz in the last year or so. I am Greta Sanderson. I'm the chairperson of the committee, and Brad is our town council representative, so feel free to chime in if there's anything I'm missing here as I'm trying to update you on all of our activities. You have my presentation there, so I know you have a long agenda, so I won't go over everything in detail. You can just read that if you're interested in learning a little bit more. But our group was founded in the mid-1990s by Lana Funkhauser, and one of our primary responsibilities is to obtain the town's Tree City designation, which we have done every year for the last 20 years in large part. Thank you to Lance and all of his efforts. It's just really important to take a few minutes, especially as the town is developing and growing, to talk about the value of trees and what that means to our town. Our mission is to promote urban forestry, and streetscape beautification for Zionsville. So the first thing is maintaining that tree city designation, and having a tree board is one of those requirements for that. We also work to act as a liaison on street tree plantings, identify areas for urban forestry, develop a community service day, and work with the town and others for the management of planting beds along with public education. There are actually 4 there are standards to become a tree city. One of them is having the tree board, which is possessed. We also need to have a tree care ordinance, a community forestry program, and then an Arbor Day observance and a proclamation, which is our Z Green Fest every year. Our committee members include myself, of course. Brad Burke is our town council representative, Tom Cathellini, and also through the end of December, Mervyn Cohen, who is on the board just through the end of this year. He has resigned his position, or said he won't renew for another year due to some additional commitments that he's taken on that are just going to take up a little bit too much time. And we also lost our remaining charter member, Nancy Ticketjohn, this summer, who resigned due to some health reasons. So that does leave us with 2 openings on the current 5-member board. And then we are also proposing expanding to 7 members. And I'll explain that a little bit, what our thinking is on that here in just a moment. But recognizing that we had that opening with Nancy and then Dr. Cohen resigning last month, I think he let us know. We did do a little bit of advertising on Facebook and asking for some names of anyone to throw their name in the hat who might be interested. And we have about 7 or 8 people who are interested in filling the board, and we're looking forward to getting ready to move ahead on that. So each one of our 5 current board members has started taking on one of those areas of responsibility, one of those areas of the mission of the board. First is Ordinances and Preservation. So that's talking about which ones are on the recommended planting lists and which are not, is the primary focus there. Events, which is the Tree Planting Day or Z Green Fest, the Tree City Designation, Outreach and Education, and then Beautification. So those are the 5 primary areas of focus that each of our board members kind of is in charge of one of those tasks. So a few of the additional things that we've done just in the last year. We did help initiate the planting and dedication of a tree over by the Plaza on the east side there in memory of Lana Funkhauser and everything she's done for the town, not only founding Pizzazz, but for the Plan Commission and just for a number of years as a Zionsville native. And we had a really nice memorial ceremony at the end of April. It was very well attended, and there's a tree out there with a plaque in her memory. We also completed tree board training in February 2021. Yes, there is tree board training. This is through the DNR and their urban forestry coordinator. And 2 things, 2 new initiatives kind of came out of that training. The first was doing an urban tree canopy assessment. The goal is to have an urban tree canopy of about 40%. And we have actually written a letter of support for the town's application for an IU resilience grant to hopefully fund doing this urban canopy assessment, so we can both get a baseline kind of on where we are as far as tree coverage in Zionsville, and then also help inform our future planning needs. So that will help us uncover the open areas or areas of focus where we should be looking for additional plantings. The second initiative was having some sort of a recognition program or a designation for both businesses and residential projects that have done a really great job of demonstrating and highlighting tree preservation. It could be in their landscaping with new plantings. It could be in what they were able to preserve. It could be a mixture of both, but we thought that might be a nice way to bring some additional attention and recognition to the value of trees. So that is one of the reasons why we're looking to add 2 new board members so that they could each sort of spearhead those 2 new initiatives that we anticipate being able to focus on in 2022. So I won't go into too much detail in the interest of time, but just I think it's a lot of times it's really easy to just take trees for granted. You think it's a tree. But really, they do more than just look good. They do more than just aesthetics and provide some shade. They help increase property values. They absorb carbon dioxide. They help with stormwater management and runoff. They lower crime. They even save energy. And certainly, we know a lot about property values. So there's a lot there for the value of trees, and a lot of that fits in, I think, with some of the initiatives and the focus of the town as far as property values, stormwater, lowering crime, all of our climate initiatives that are going on. So in short, I guess I would just appreciate your support that we would be able to expand to those 7 members to keep a lot of the momentum we have going forward. Thank you. I appreciate any questions.
Thanks, Greta. Heather, this is actually a question for you. Is that just a resolution we pass if we wanted to expand from 5 to 7 members per
Yes.
Greta's request? Is
Yes.
that pretty
Yeah, I
straightforward?
don't think we have it in our ordinances. I just
No,
think we have
we
it by
don't.
resolution.
Got it. Okay. Brad, anything to add? I know that you're our representative on there, but and Greta did a pretty good
More
job.
than
there.
anything, I would really just like to thank Greta for her leadership and her vision. I do a lot of volunteer work. She really does a great job. I mean, she really provides a lot of leadership to this group, and it wouldn't happen if you weren't there really pushing to make it happen. And it's a great group. It's really a great mission. So if anyone watching, I know you said you had some names, but if this sparks any interest in folks who have an interest in this, please reach out to Greta or myself or Amy and let us know if that's something you'd like to volunteer for. I would only other echo just the work that this group does is very much in line with Zionsville's reputation and our cultivation of a community that's fully committed to parks, to green space, to forestry aesthetics. All of that's really part of Zionsville's brand and attractiveness, and to your point, brings in new folks and brings in economic development and everything else. I think it's an important part of a kind of holistic view of what Zionsville is all about. So great stuff, and happy to answer any of the questions for folks who have questions for me as well.
Any concern from counselors here if we go down a path of adding to that group?
No, my only question would be where the appointments come from. You know,
I'd assume they would stay where they're at today from a council appointment standpoint.
yeah, I mean, are all the 5 currently appointed by council?
My
Yes,
understanding is
they
yes.
are.
Okay, so all 7 would be, okay.
Yeah.
Then now I don't have any question.
Okay. Heather, maybe we can add that to our future
Board
meeting
plan.
here
Yep.
to get that done. Very good. Well, thanks, Greta. Appreciate you and all the other volunteers on Pizzazz.
Thank you.
Next, we've got a consideration of an establishment of a no parking zone at Chelsea Park for Templin Road. We've got Jason Wisniewski listed. Hi, Jason. Come on up.
Good evening. Jason Wisniewski, Grand Communities, 3940 Olympic Boulevard, Erlanger, Kentucky, 41018. I wrote a letter to council, I believe last week, about a week ago, summarizing the issue at our Chelsea Park subdivision. And I guess I'm here to answer any questions. I don't have a presentation or anything. I can certainly expand upon what was in the letter as to how we kind of reached this point. But I think what I said in the letter, and I think that town staff was supportive of this, was the issue kind of arose as to how do we handle deliveries and drop-offs for the 11 homes that will be fronting Templin Road, and Amazon, DoorDash, Grubhub, those kinds of things, right? FedEx, you know, their tendency is going to be to pull up in front, stop on Templin Road, and then try to access the front of the homes. And through the approval of the primary plat and then eventually the secondary plat, we worked with Planning Commission to come up with, and I think at the time, if you go back and check the meeting notes, I said, look, this isn't the perfect solution. I don't know what the perfect solution is, but we have done everything we can to accommodate what is essentially a speculative. I don't know how these people are going to deliver things. I don't know how deliveries are made. Can I say that nobody's going to stop on Templin Road? You know, no, I can't say that, but we can do everything we can to facilitate those deliveries occurring in the back. So what we did is we removed a home, added some parking and in the rear of the home, the rear of the homes, and then added like a mid-block path. And again, you guys, everybody's used Amazon and FedEx, right? They've got like a special instructions section where you can say, hey, look, deliveries drop to the back, use this walkthrough. So we tried to accommodate it as best we can. And kind of where we landed was we would engage the town council and at the time there was some confusion as to whether it was Zionsville Road or a county road. We determined it's Zionsville's road. And we said, look, we would explore the possibility of no parking signs if that's what everybody wanted. Or will we put no parking signs in if that's what's desired? Absolutely. We're kind of suggesting no wait and see approach to see if this really is an issue and how big of an issue, just because it becomes, they're not the most attractive things to put a no parking sign out there, but people live with that every day, I guess. So that's kind of how we arrived. That's how I am standing here right now. But I'll say this is here to answer any questions, give any background. I don't think we have we can go either way depending on what council wants, but what I put in the letter is what we proposed, just because we thought it was a little bit more aesthetically pleasing for the community that we're trying to set. So with that, I'll stop talking.
There is actually not a vote needed here if we don't want to do anything. Personally, this reminds me of the old 70s song, sign everywhere sign.
Yeah.
I don't know that we need to put signs up everywhere for a problem we do not know exists. So to me, that makes all sense in the world. I appreciate the commitment to put up the signs if need be. But knowing how narrow Templin is, I can't imagine many people parking down there anyways. So I'm good just not having that requirement. I don't know if any other counselors have a concern about
Well, it
it.
sounds like the primary concern is visitors. It's really deliveries that are parked.
Correct.
Right. And it sounds like you've tried to accommodate this by removing a home, and I haven't seen what y'all have done, but I know it requires some instructions, because otherwise they probably just map it and pull up, right? So if there's no instruction, they're not going to know to do that. But this would be a good test case, right? I mean, there's probably going to be no time period of the year where there's more deliveries than in the next 2 weeks. So, maybe that's worked.
And again, the subdivision, just to be clear, is under construction now. So we will know. So we might be here a year from now would be a great test case.
Yeah.
Christmas 2022, we'll see how this all
Okay.
falls into place.
If you think about other roads like this, you don't see a bunch of cars parking on it. So I'm good with it. So there's no vote needed here. Heather, Amy, nothing to do. Just go forth and be free, I guess, with this.
Amy, is that, or did we need a vote to say we'll put the signs in? No, so that we could, I just want to make sure we have checked the box again, meeting minutes or whatever. If somebody comes back and say, hey, did Grand Communities check this box? I want to make sure I have whatever I need.
I'm with these two guys unless Counselor Melton feels differently. I think wait and see. And if it needs to be addressed down the road, we'll address it down the road.
There we go. Lance, does that check your box on that? Okay. Very good.
All right.
Consider it resolved, Jason.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for coming in. Appreciate it. Next, you've got a consideration of a resolution amending the Zionsville Master Development Plan pursuant to Indiana Code number 6-7-4-500 ETSEQ, the Airport Use Plan. This is resolution 2021-19. Corey Whitesole is who I've got talking about this one.
You repeat that file for me?
Can if you really want to.
Thank you. My name is Corey Weitzel with HWC Engineering. We were the lead consultant for the airport area strategic land use plan. With me tonight is Stephanie Ward from Mead and Hunt. She's online. Be happy to answer any questions about the land use plan. This was presented to council, to Plan Commission. We had several different meetings where we listened clearly to public input and strove to find a compromise that balanced the input that we received. And I believe that we did achieve that balance. Be happy to answer any questions that you do have about the plan. It was forwarded to you with unanimous recommendation from the Plan Commission. Again, we can go through as much detail as you guys would like to see tonight.
Brian, I know you were on this. Could you maybe give just an overview of what this even is, just for the public's sake?
So I think it's been 2.5 years.
We started this in 2018.
Yeah, so a long time that we've been working on this. And The idea is it's the airport and the town working together to kind of try to map out the plan. And I say a 30-year plan because it's not a 5-year plan. It's okay, down the road, we're not going to change anything today, but down the road, what do we want this area to look like? How can the airport and the residents best live together kind of in harmony as much as possible? And we've worked on this for 2.5 years or almost 3 years. I think the proposal in front of you is a good one. It does, not everybody's going to be happy. No, it's never the case that everybody's happy. But I think this addresses how do we live, around the airport? What can we do to benefit from the airport being there, as well as to minimize disruption down the road for the residents? Prime example of a bad idea is Union Woods that's going in at the end of the runway. If this plan were in place, we could have kept that from happening. Instead, we're going to have a couple hundred houses at the end of the runway, and many, in 3 years, people that live in that neighborhood are going to go, I didn't know there was an airport there, and they're going to be complaining. And it's because this plan doesn't exist today. There is a plan, but it's not this plan. So I think the plan that's in place, we've tweaked it and worked together, and I think I'm supportive of the plan as presented. The mayor was also on the committee. I would love to hear her input as well. I know it's not a public session, but I think it's important that since she is in the room, if we can get her feedback as well, since she was on the committee.
And here she comes.
Thanks so much, Counselor. To be honest, I really leaned a lot into your thoughts with regard to this project, given your, your long tenure serving that community. I too thought that there was a lot that they took into account, and it is a development plan that's broad and focused on what development will look like for a couple of decades. So I agree with Counselor Traylor.
And one clarification, because there was a remonstrator talking about this, is what happens within the airport perimeter, we don't control, correct? So landing, takeoff and timing, frequency, runway length, they've been a participant so we can predict future development, but none of this plan has anything to do with the airport operation itself, noise levels, pollution levels, things like that, correct?
The airport within the fence, we have no control over. And they actually have minimal control over the traffic, because being a federally funded airport, they can't turn airplanes away that want to land there. So as long as we're a vibrant community that we are, if airplanes want to land there, they're going to land there. So there's nothing we can do to stop that. What we can do is plan as well as we can for the property around the airport, to where we have, we know that the airport is there. We know that they're not going to slow down. It's just how do we best prepare for how to live around the airport.
Makes sense.
I think this plan also just helps people in general going forward have a document in front of them that is tells them exactly what you just said. I know there are residents who are in that area who bought their homes years ago, and they are surprised by the volume of flights that come through. And I think that one of the good things is this is just giving us more of a clear idea of how that's evolving.
Yeah, I'll go on the record and say that air traffic is not going to get any slower.
So we only have 4 counselors here, and usually something like this, I'd prefer all of us or most of us. Corey, if we continue this by one meeting, just to make sure the other 3 had a chance to weigh in, does that have any impact on timing, or if it's a 2-week continuance from your perspective?
I don't think it impacts anything specifically. It's just a matter of trying to get this wrapped up and
just a heads up, I won't be here for the meeting in 2 weeks, but
Well,
I've given my.
you've given your
feedback.
tangential
Yeah.
blessing there, so we'll take that.
We're still within 30-day window too, so it should be okay there.
Okay.
I have a question. On the key considerations, the existing development and overflight areas. Number 3 on the report says the airport has no short-term or long-term plans to allow on a regular basis larger aircrafts than business jets, nor is it supported by the FAA. On a regular basis is in my quotations for the question, is this allowed? Do you allow larger jets? Is that, I understand there's something that has to do with the asphalt, whether larger jets can come on a regular basis. But then I just heard Councilor Trailer say that if a plane wants to land there, it's going to land. So
A plane that can land there. It's a weight restricted runway.
Yeah, there's a bearing capacity to a runway. So we heard from a lot of residents very concerned about runway extending is that going to allow larger jets? And a longer runway is a margin of safety. To handle larger jets, it has to be 1, approved by FAA. And then 2, it has to have a thicker pavement section to handle the larger load. So you can't turn aircraft away, but this plan does not endorse a new level of service at the airport. It's important to recognize this is a land use plan for how land is used around the airport. The actual operations of the airport, and it kind of goes back to your question earlier, the operations of the airport are really governed back to a master plan that was developed in 2007, 2008. This is responding to how the airport is operating and has master plans to operate. Is not creating any changes to how the airport is working. We're looking at land use around that. It is in response to it. So no, this does not endorse a larger level of plane that would come in, but you can't turn them away if there's an emergency situation, somebody needs to land, but it's not going to be a frequent level of service there.
And one thing I did want to point out, I know we may end up continuing this, but it might be good for people to know that may be listening at home. If you go into the document into the actual document itself, page 55 outlines the current land use map. So what I want to point out is there's already a land use map in place that most of the residents have no idea even exists. So this would be very much the same. Probably in 15 years, people will be going, what? I didn't know I had a land use map in place. Well, there is already a land use map in place. So I would encourage people that are maybe concerned about this to look at that map, see where they stand today in what that property is ideally suited for according to this map, and then look at the new map. I think the new map's better.
Brian, I've just spent a lot of time, and I may have to come meet with you. So if we do continue this, it might be helpful. Certainly, I think this is super important, and I'm 100% behind what we're trying to accomplish. It looks like at least on the map on page 10 is really kind of where we want to prohibit and or strongly discourage development, right? And then there's some opportunities for limited residential, multifamily housing. But when I pull that down to the next map on page 12, like up at 32 at Trailer Road, it looks like that says mixed use airport village district, even though on the previous map, it was kind of like, we really don't want any development in that orange spot. So it just doesn't look like it aligns completely where we're.
So there's a couple of clarifications we can make to that. The map on page 10 was added during the Plan Commission at their recommendation. And this was intended to specifically address residential uses. Where is various types of residential use appropriate? Because there's confusion of why is it okay to have multifamily residential in some areas, but in some areas we're saying no residential at all. And so what this clarifies, for example, in the area at the southeast corner of 32 and 421, the residential map says limited to multifamily housing types as the primary use. What you'll see then in the the overall future land use map, which is what do we really want that to be? The residential portion is just focusing on the residential. From a land use standpoint, we'd like to have a little bit more character than just an apartment complex. So that's described in that future land use map as a village district, which would be a mixed use district in that area to serve a commercial center at that intersection in the long term. We needed something to say what is very specifically appropriate for residential. And then we wanted to also describe the character of that development.
Is that corner of 421 and 32, then, so that's a lot of what you said, mixed use, but some commercial opportunities there, whereas south of there, you obviously kind of have an area coming in for traffic, you don't want anything, and then you have this mixed use campus housing, but no commercial there. You really just start thinking more about townhomes or something?
Yeah, something a much smaller scale further to the south. We saw that as potentially having a very small amount of supportive commercial. Think of more as we talked about a campus use district. We're thinking maybe there's a corner coffee shop, something small to support some of the housing that would go in that area, but nothing of any large size. This needs to be low rise and low density in those areas, just because you do have some overflight traffic of corporate traffic that generally follows 421.
Any other questions, councilors? So because this is like a 20-year plan, I would like the other council to weigh in if possible. I don't have any problems with the plan, but do a little more research. And so I hate to make you come back, Corey, but I would make a motion to continue to the next meeting until we have a fuller house, less Councilor Trailer. Is there a second on that?
Second.
Second from Councilor Burke. All in favor of a continuance? Aye. Any opposed? Resolution 2021 is continued by a vote of 4 in favor, 0 opposed. Thank you, Corey. Number E, we've got a consideration of a resolution amending the Zionsville Master Development Plan pursuant to Indiana Code. Listen up, Brian. 36-7-4-500 ETSEQ, the Zionsville Gateway area. This is resolution 2021-20, and we've got Kara Weber here. Hi, Kara.
Hi, good to see you, President Garrett and the council. I do have a visual, which may pop up here. Thank you, Joe. Thanks again for having us back. This is a presentation that you saw a couple months ago, so we'll go quickly through it as I know we all have seen it, and just highlight a couple points and then open up to questions. So as we continue on forward through this couple pages, you get to see pictures of yourself. We have gone through an extensive process beginning back in August. So a little bit over a year on this project and continuing forward. Thank you. The goals from this for it to be economically vibrant, whole community serving, and an authentically Zionsville experience. So every design tenet, every development suggestion, design idea that we thought about had to be filtered through these tests. And then next, the two basic things we did is really deep dive in what does the community want, and then how can we provide it in a smart way, in a way that attracts developers as well. So continuing forward on that, and this is the page that I'll pause on before we ask questions, but the success of the study is really that there was so much really passionate community input. People volunteered their time, their voices to make sure that the community is heard about what the community wants here at the ZGA, a really important part of Zionsville. Secondly, it de-risks development efforts. So when there's a strong vision, people understand what the community is going to do, what the town is going to do, and what this could look like, and can all rally behind it. And thirdly, this diagram shows A, which is the orange, A, D, C, and F as mixed use. Currently, the VBD district allows all of these parcels to be mixed use. So the development density right now is higher, and we're suggesting a slightly lower density to provide some of the amenities that the community has requested. For example, the concept of a B, a slightly lower density buffer area in between the single family neighborhood that is adjacent, and the concept of E, a public plaza, which people keep asking for. How do we provide that space to really host and have that placemaking opportunity that Zionsville really attracts people to? So I will pause here and see if there's questions that we can answer.
Kara, E is a privately owned piece of land. If you set this up, how does that impact them or their own plans to sell it for their own use? Or if they sold it tomorrow, what happens to this plan? You know, if they sold it tomorrow and do something in the VBD, it's allowed. How does that, I guess that's part of the micro question. The macro question is, outside of a friendly developer coming in and taking this all down and doing it, what consideration has there been about how we can afford to help?
Yeah, that's a great question, Wayne. I didn't know if you wanted to.
Certainly, this document is what you described as a plan. This is trying to level set the playing field, provide support, a direction, community advocacy, if you will, for next steps. Certainly a project could come in that is juxtaposed to the current zoning, comes in as a PUD, doesn't match up with the recommendations, and then that's the community conversation. But this is merely policy. The next step from here, assuming adoption, is creation of zoning districts that match up with this conversation, certainly using the form-based code, McKenna's efforts in large part to facilitate that.
So thinking about E, right? If I owned E, I'd be pretty nervous because the value of E is probably pretty high in an acreage standpoint and would be pretty low if it's a public plaza. How does that, if we communicate we want to do a public plaza there and a private developer does something else, what are the ramifications? How locked in are we to that? Do you have a sense of that, Wayne, or the implications of what we may be voting on here today for those landowners?
Well, certainly this plan leans heavily into what will the town support in terms of infrastructure. And this plan is describing the extension of First Street in a manner that ends up connecting with Zionsville Road just to the south. With that type of road project, the resulting residual parcel from that acquisition, if that does occur, may not be as usable as we see it on the screen today. And the town would have to have that conversation about the ultimate purchase of that entire parcel for a right-of-way project.
Got it. Have you gamed out what it might cost to do the infrastructure and how that will be paid for? Because this land is currently in a TIF, is that correct?
That's correct. This TIF expires May of 29, February of 29. So certainly there's a number of items that are listed out in the plan as action items, including including what would be done, such as maybe shifting some of the ownership around of A to the redevelopment commission, talking about resetting the TIF, a bond issuance, develop back / dependent on the TIF obligation. The action items from there would tie into next year. First thing we would be doing is a road impact study of what that traffic analysis would be based upon that alignment. With that infrastructure, we've priced that out at about $7.5 million, give or take, from the entirety of that extension. Of course, prices are escalating, costs are changing. Certainly, we've submitted for a grant as part of the READY grant. We're excited to talk about that. That's something we believe will be decided upon by the end of this year. Certainly, other cash that would be laid into that project would be part of that TIF bond issuance.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Yeah, I had the same thought to some degree. I mean, if E is a public plaza, and first of all, I mean, I love the vision. I mean, we have to do this. I mean, this is critically important that we provide some vision on what we want to be at the gateway. It appears to me, I mean, the town may have to, I mean, if it's public space, would that not be town owned?
It's likely, or you could have a separate nonprofit own it, such as your community development corporation. These are conversations for future times. TIF dollars are not allowed to be used for maintenance, and so those conversations have to evolve somewhat.
Yeah, CPC would be a good option. I like it. So these would be rezoned as part of the overall rezoning plan. All of this would be zoned in a different way than it is currently. Is that right?
Not by your action of adopting the plan. The plan has no teeth. Certainly those topics would be tackled next year in terms of the form-based code conversations.
When we do the other, yeah.
Correct.
The whole new.
I mean, certainly it could have its own track, but we feel as if we're looking at a form-based code, finishing that project by September, third quarter of next year. Certainly we're all very anxious and the community is very anxious to see the next steps. So we might pull that out separately. It could follow the same track.
When folks come in on the new quote, Main Street, First Street, when they get to Sycamore, is that a one-way? Can they turn right? It looks like that's just a one-way, then going east.
Certainly the way that's laid out, it's turning movements are both directions, but as we work through that modeling, that's where that's going to change a little bit possibly. And one thing to emphasize here is your brick street is to be extended southerly where the Main Street is currently. And that will have intermittent use. I mean, by law, we are not supposed to cut off or cannot cut off a parcel from access to a roadway. Certainly parcel F does not have vehicular access to Sycamore currently. So we'd be working through that conversation about access closures, how that would be modified in terms of
south of Sycamore, currently at Main, that would be new brick, even though it's pedestrian only. Is that the vision, or
that's the vision? Yes, and that would be an extension of that Plaza to allow that flow of pedestrians to utilize that space. And when it's not necessary for pedestrian maneuvering, it can be there for deliveries. But certainly over time, we could see that intensity of that plaza area increasing as the motoring public finds more comfort with the new alignment.
Yeah, my only concern really is, I mean, again, this isn't a reason not to support this in any way. Obviously, when you come into town and you hit Sycamore and Main, there's a lot not to be desired there on the south side, but there's so much to be desired as you roll right up. And I know we just put a parking lot in, which looks fantastic, by the way. Looks great. But I mean, that's still the character of the town. When you roll in, everyone that I invite to Zionsville or bring to Zionsville, I don't go down First Street. I bring everybody down Main Street the first time. Now they can take First Street the second time. So I don't want to lose that wow factor when you roll up. And I know we're going to, and you can design this new First Street in all kinds of different ways. I don't even know if it's, probably that's not going to be brick, but I think it's so important what goes in on D and E, because that truly becomes the first thing when you see you come in. And I mean, a lot of this isn't our control. It's, we rezone it, but it could look like places in other neighboring communities I'd rather not name, but they look fine, but it doesn't look like Zionsville.
Yes, so we all deeply share your concern that this has to feel very much like Zionsville. Again, back to the tenants, has to feel authentically Zionsville. If it feels like a neighboring community, it doesn't feel like us, this is going to be not successful. So the value of putting parcel E as the public plaza very specifically is that as you come in, if you're heading northward from the south past parcel E, you still have visibility to that Brick Street entrance, to the historic entrance. If parcel E were a 3-story building, you would lose that visual connection. And that is an extremely strong point that we needed to make as a development suggestion. Again, this is not a final design, it's just a development suggestion, but it's important that we don't lose that strong connection to the historic part of this.
Right, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Kara, if the demonstration, Mr. Hoagie talked about a denser development, and Ms. Hanson was represented, talked about land that could support a higher use. If they chose to tackle a project that was outside the scope of what this is, this wouldn't prevent them from doing that, correct? It would just, they're going to have a better chance of success if they follow this guideline. Is that a fair statement?
That's exactly correct. This is kind of a visual documentation of the design tenets of what the town would be in support of, and what, pre-remonstrance, what people would be in support of in general. Certainly developers, private landowners may continue to develop it to the extent the zoning allows. So that is absolutely an option.
I have a question. Can you explain to me what goes in some examples of what goes in a public plaza?
Public plaza, so it could be programmed in many different ways. So there would be some hardscape opportunities, so concrete or pavers or whatnot. This is where you could host farmers markets. This is where you could host music performances. This is also just going to be an open connection that would tie into the great asset down to the water. Because right now the downtown and the water are disjointed somewhat. So we have a real opportunity to help join those and facilitate those feeling like one experience.
So maybe a winter fest? No, probably not enough space for something like that. I guess my concern is the way that's set up with E, again, we're all focused, it's just a different color, it's easy to pick on, is if that First Street traffic is free flowing or flowing, how do you get the residents or the people in Zionsville across First Street safely? I see we've got the pathway on the east side of E that goes down to the water, but I'm concerned about getting people across that busy intersection. So I think as long as we focus on doing that well, and then if private development decides to do something, we work with them. I think I could get through this, but with the location of the public plaza in the middle, I'm a little concerned about that. In my mind, I guess we're not supposed to say other municipalities, but in Noblesville, they have a plaza and it's beautiful. That's where they're doing their winter fest, quote unquote. And it's in the middle between a river, commercial, and then a very, very busy road. And I have concerns about a busy road being next to the plaza. So aside from that, I think, I definitely want to see us utilize that waterfront property. And that's where I'd like to hang out, to watch and relax and maybe listen to music. So that's my thought.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, pedestrian safety and kind of new urbanist philosophies on highlighting the pedestrian and promoting the value of the pedestrian will be really critical. And I know that the crosswalk, the pedestrian is not, the concern on it is not relegated to just the ZGA area. I know that extends northward, especially in this area. So it will absolutely be very important in the next steps of design.
Thank you.
Where do we see primarily, obviously, A now is a parking lot. We don't want it to be a parking lot. Where's the primary parking for a lot of this new commercial activity?
So you're seeing kind of these rounded corners. That does not indicate building edges, so to speak, just parcels. The intent of this, that this would all be self-parked, no variances would be required to park the uses that would exist here. And I should say, even specifically, there's opportunity as the grade falls off on particularly even the west side of C, B, and D, there's opportunities to explore some lower level parking to take advantage of that grade falling off. Yeah, please.
And I can jump in as well. I mean, certainly the town recognizes the interest of providing parking solutions, and certainly at the same time leaning into the grid, extension of the grid. There's no moving vehicular traffic with roundabouts and other devices isn't necessarily the goal here. The idea is extension of the grid, but certainly answering that the parking need is of great value. Certainly each one of these parcels will be required to have its own parking on its own parcel. That doesn't necessarily generate a high level of AV. So certainly there'll be additional conversations over the next half a year. We've been working on this for the last 4 or 5 months, is that structured parking component. What can the town be doing in terms of contributing maybe outside of this mapped area, be it a parcel just adjacent, be it down Zionsville Road, down South Main Street. So there's a number of ideas, but certainly to Councilor Melton's point, we do, even though we don't necessarily mention these communities' names, we do study different communities to see how they're handling that. And certainly Noblesville's Winterfest is held on a redevelopment site. It was utilized by Dave Mason vehicle sales, throughout the years. And certainly that site parks itself on the adjacent land to the south, which is owned by Riverview, which is also a former car lot. And then on the side streets, the shopping center to the north strictly prohibits the use of that property, their property, for parking. So they do end up solving the parking need, but there is community involvement. There is police providing crossings. And that same area you mentioned is used for farmers markets, summertime concerts, and there's all these different things the community is doing as a part of that community's conversation.
And a public restroom. They have a public restroom.
They do.
That is definitely in there.
I've had more questions about public restrooms and parking. Yeah, that's what it comes down to. I know this is a wider conversation is just as we continue to grow as a community and just the way, the town has some real natural advantages, right? The way that the town is laid out around the landmarks that kind of present, some real opportunities for us not to develop, which is great. That's why there's so much park with lions and across the street and everything else. I think it's important as we continue to look down the road is to find ways to move traffic so everything in town doesn't have to feel like it has to go down First Street, because they're only going to continue to see even more traffic in the next 5 to 10 years if we don't find ulterior arteries moving traffic away from downtown, unless you want to come downtown. That makes sense. I know it's beyond the scale of this conversation, but I think there are ways to get to traffic beyond. This isn't solving traffic at all. It's solving the gateway. Traffic is going to continue to be a challenge.
I could certainly offer that part of the traffic study that will happen in concert with the action item going forward is to work on those points. The idea that the town will solve its maneuverability challenges by this design, that was never the intention. It's certainly, will always be that vehicle that wants to come through the downtown just to see NVC. And that's,
and we want
that. Yeah, we want that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kara, I know you asked for some questions. Would you have other materials to go through, or are we?
Nothing that is new.
Okay.
I have the rest of the update presentation, but certainly no new information.
If we were to continue this one more meeting to let the other 3 counselors just review, ask questions, is there any material impact on projects or things that might?
I would say no. I think larger buy-in to this vision is certainly more important. Absolutely.
Brian, I know you'll miss next meeting. Any thoughts you want to share?
I actually, I really like it. I like the plan. My concern is we'll have to buy that. It's like, the challenge is always money. I don't dislike the idea. It's just when we get to how do we pay for Lot E to make this a reality?
Yeah.
That's a different conversation. But I also mentioned the last time you presented this that I was surprised when I looked at this. And I'm not seeing cars on it, but I'm kind of envisioning how the traffic does flow, and I think this does improve traffic flow in that area. And I said one thing I hadn't considered in how to improve traffic flow in that area was actually shutting down part of a main road in there, and how it kind of diverts, instead of having to go down to Sycamore, hang a left and then hang a right up on the First Street, which is becoming our main drag for locals, not for people that are shopping on Main Street, but the locals go First Street. So I think this will help traffic. It won't cure the problem, but it'll help.
Mm-hmm.
So, and no, I've got no issue with continuing it until I'm not here.
And I will say, to the point of how is this funded, not to make any strong suggestions, but you'll note that Lot A, which is town owned, has an opportunity for development, multi-use development on that. So that's something that can be considered.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, I'll make a motion to continue until Council Trailer's not here or next meeting. Second by Council Trailer. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, resolution 2021-20 is continued until next meeting by a vote of 4 in favor, 0 opposed. Thanks, Kara. Thanks, Wayne. Letter F. We've got a consideration of an ordinance to modify a commitment concerning the use or development of real estate within the town of Zionsville, Boone County, Indiana, with Appaloosa Crossing. This is ordinance 2021-13. Mr. Price, I see your name listed here. Come on down.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. For the record, Matt Price with an address at 10 West Market Street here tonight on behalf of Pulte Homes for the towns at Appaloosa, which is at the southeast corner of 146th Street and Michigan Road. And I have with me this evening representatives of Pulte Homes, Robin Crawford and Dave Compton, and then the property owner, Bob Harris, also with us this evening. Just before getting into kind of specifics of the request, I might just provide a little bit of background, but this property was rezoned originally back in 2008. And at the time it was contemplated to be a power center, for lack of a better word, with a 150,000 square foot or larger Kroger store. And as the Marsh bankruptcy unfolded and as Kroger made its response in the marketplace to that, along with other changes in market conditions, the development kind of concept has evolved. And over the last several years, we have periodically revisited the commitments that govern the property to modernize them and really respond to the marketplace. And this is kind of the latest iteration of one of those opportunities to revisit a specific commitment. If I go to the first slide, Joe. This is an outline of the proposed townhomes. And this is really the central 18 acres of the Harris development, the Appaloosa Crossing development. The perimeter along Michigan Road, and then the perimeter to the north along 146th Street will continue to be commercial development as you see taking place today. What this portion of the development represents is 113 townhomes. And we've arrived at the number 113 after several plan revisions as we work through the Plan Commission process. And you should know that the Plan Commission, after the public hearing back in August, formed a special study committee. We had multiple meetings with that committee to work through revisions to our proposal, which included reducing the total number of units by 8. We added 74 additional street trees apropos to the discussion tonight, enhancing the buffer package both on the east side of the property, the southern part of the property, and really all sides of the property, so that we surpass the ordinance standards for buffering, both in terms of the width of our buffers and the number of trees per 100 linear feet. Importantly to that, we also made all of the interior units, so those units that you see shaded in the red or pinkish color, the salmon color, those are all rear-loaded townhomes, 3 stories. The ones on the outside perimeter are being maintained at 2 stories and are accessed from the front. That allowed us to do a number of things as far as the flexibility of the development, including keeping the units that abut the residential homes to the east in the Willow Glen subdivision, keeping those units at 2 stories and mirroring the 2 stories on the east side of the property line. Go to the next slide. This is a graphic depiction of the various landscaping treatments. Let me explain what you're looking at there a little bit. That green line that kind of goes through the bottom and separates the top 2/3 from the bottom 1/3, that is the demarcation in the property between general business to the north and professional business to the south. Both of those zoning districts today permit residential development. What they do not permit expressly, and what our commitment modification, if approved, will do this evening, is permit the for sale attached townhome type building. Today, those are not permitted because they technically meet the definition of multifamily, which was restricted when the property was rezoned. And we're seeking to maintain that restriction, for example, on apartments. No apartments would be permitted. But if the commitment
modification were approved, it would permit the townhomes, a for sale home that's not a rental community.
So Matt, currently everything above that green line would be permittable to have a townhome?
No, that's true both. What I just said is true both on the north side of the green line and the south side of the green line. What that entire shaded green area is permitted for, though, is single family residential. And that was a commitment modification that was approved back in 2019 when we referred to it at that time as modernizing the commitments to respond to kind of the power center concept becoming antiquated.
So the green line really is, and just thinking to the original plan, south of there was more like that office space and the top was more quote commercial. I don't know, I guess they're both commercial,
Retail.
but retail, commercial. Yeah, thank you.
It was a Kroger. Yeah, Kroger really north of the line. And then south of the line, it was contemplating more professional office uses.
Okay, right. So that's what that line is.
Yeah. And we provided it as part of this exhibit, maybe a little more detail than what you might absolutely be interested in this evening, but it's useful to discuss because it was a big part of what we've been working on for a good chunk of this year was arriving at the landscaping package. So there are different buffering requirements depending on whether you're in the PB or the GB. And so what we did to provide consistency was work with the neighbors to our east. We actually walked the property line, identified specific trees that need to be removed and underbrush that needed to be removed, and then also specified additional plantings that could be done along that property line to assure that there's an adequate buffer, more than adequate buffer between the Willow Glen subdivision and ourselves. And we did that same thing on really all sides of the development. One of the challenges is to create really more of a mixed use type development here where we have a residential use that complements and really helps support the commercial development around its perimeter, while at the same time providing that nice transition between the commercial uses and the residential uses to the east, which was attractive to those homeowners along Willow Glen. And so, as I mentioned earlier, along each of the perimeters, so east where the kind of lavender colored trees are, west where the blue plantings are, as well as to the south and north, we exceed the minimum planting standards by significant margins to provide that enhanced buffering. And then the red on the interior, as you heard the representative from Possess speak about, those are our street trees that we've provided. And as I mentioned, we planted the maximum number of street trees that we could fit on the property. And then for those excess street trees that would otherwise be required but could not be fit along the streets, we redistributed those trees around the perimeter of the property to create a very attractive landscaping package. And that's all been set forth in the development plan, which was heard by the Plan Commission back on November 15th and approved unanimously as part of their recommendation of the commitment modification. Next slide, please.
Matt, real quick, how many, I don't see it on here, how many lots or homes is this? 100?
This represents 113. We originally proposed 121, and we eliminated eight homes as part of the redesign recommended by the Plan Commission and the Special Study Committee. This is a representation of the architecture that's being incorporated into the development. Mr. Harris's family has owned this property for over 50 years. It used to be improved by a family barn, and he has sought to really perpetuate the equestrian feel and the farmhouse style architecture and truly make it an integrated architectural feel for the development. So this is representative of what the front entry townhomes would look like. Again, 2 stories. And the next slide. And this is there was some discussion about wanting to have some variation on some of the color palette, including a richer tones. And this is another representation of a 2-story architecture and color palette. Joe's anticipating my change, which I appreciate. This is the 3-story. Again, these are rear loaded. These would only be in the interior of the development in that area that was shaded pink. Move to the next one, Joe. And this is a representation of the shops building that you see going up now. And again, I wanted to share this to show how the color palette and the architectural elements are consistent with the townhomes being built as part of creating that uniform appearance. Go to the next one. Then we also provide typical rear and side elevations as well.
Is that the 3-story or is that the 2-story?
Those are the 2-story.
That's a lot of attic, man.
Well, they do have some peaked roofs. Now they're limited to the 2-story, so very comparable in height to the Willow Glen homes to the east. Yeah, not even taller. And then, and then the east, or excuse me, the 3-story. Go to the next one, Joe. Those are the side elevations for the rear loaded. Then we're back to the landscaping treatments.
Matt,
yeah,
I have a question real quick.
Yes, sir.
Regarding the trees on this map or site plan. Are the trees potentially gonna in certain neighborhoods, putting the trees at the street affects the sewer lines 20 years from now? Are you guys considering that? Is that been, are the sewers actually down the alley, or is that something you guys have thought through and make sure that the trees for these people don't infiltrate the sewer lines in 20 years?
It is. It's an excellent question. And what we have found is that that does arise sometimes, in particular in developments where it's still in the rural service area. Here, we've laid this out so that the street trees are outside of any sewer easement, should not have any impact, for example, on sanitary sewer.
And I guess sidewalks too is something that I see those get affected by the roots. So I just wanted to call that out. It's just something that we're dealing with, and I know it's something that we can prevent, I think, from the future. Just quick comments also, I've talked to several landowners adjoining these properties, and I think they're excited to see residential like this as opposed to the back of commercial buildings. And me personally, I really like having that buffer of a different kind of development between commercial and that single family residential. So I'm excited to see this, and I hope it works out for you guys.
Hey, Matt, on this particular map, I know this is a zoom in. I know you had other, how far up from here is 300, and what's proposed north of this? Is that going to be just commercial stuff, Bob? Or whomever?
I'm glad you asked that question. So let me see if I've got. So this is probably the best way for me to answer that, because this layout has made another aspect of the development possible, which is that parcel immediately north. That is what I would call an intermediate parcel, about 5 acres, that is available for a boutique grocery. And so then north of that are the commercial outlots that actually abut 146th Street. So there is a parcel that will be accessed off of 146th Street that'll be between the townhome development on the north and the outlots. And the idea is for the boutique grocery store, Fresh Time.
So the vision is on 146 to have a similar design to what we see going up 421. And then this is back side of that. So it wouldn't face 146, it'd be interior.
Interior. Yeah. And it's really part of the making it a truly mixed use development where there is an interior commercial property that can become really in the nature of an amenity, both to the townhome residents and to the single family residents to the east. I should also add, I mean, there's other things we've worked on. I appreciated Councilor Melton's comment about working with the neighbors. We have very diligently, can't say we've made everybody happy, but we worked really hard to, including providing for pedestrian connectivity to that development to the east, where currently they don't really have any. And they are excited about being able to, for example, come to the restaurants. We have a very upscale coffee shop being planned in the shops that's being built now. They're looking forward to those type of amenities.
Yeah, just talking to folks up there, I think obviously Kroger isn't going to happen for all the reasons we talked about, but I think a boutique grocery is probably one of the most in-demand opportunities. So if this would help deliver on that, I think it'd be important.
Yeah, it's lent itself to preserving that as a possibility, and Mr. Harris, I know, is committed to continuing to work towards that ultimate goal.
Don't say continuing, you're going to give them ideas.
Yeah. Pursuing those goals.
I think he's talking about me. Matt, when you think about switching from single family homes to townhomes, how does the buyer profile change, especially as it relates to impact on schools, impact on traffic?
Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's interesting. Designsville updated its demographic analysis back in 2018, schools. And what they conclude is that a single family home generates just slightly over 1/2 a child per unit. And you have less than half of that for townhomes based on historical data and their projections. So it has a significantly lesser impact on schools than, for example, the permitted single family homes by half. Interestingly, you mentioned traffic. The positive implications for traffic are as dramatic. It's the number of traffic counts goes down by 50% or more, with the exception of AM peak. AM peak is the only time that stays nominally, well, it's higher than the commercial because there's no AM peak for commercial. But for all the remaining trips, it significantly reduces the total number of trips and really helps. It's really true of the entire package, but it's kind of rebalanced our project, both regard to traffic and to go back to the other point on groceries, to being able to kind of leverage this development to help support that additional commercial piece.
Thanks, that's helpful.
Is the traffic flow, so just to stay there for a sec, and again, this is a limited map, is the traffic flow, obviously everything comes in through Hanoverian. I mean, is that a divider between the commercial product, or does this Appaloosa Drive? Oh, here we go. So there's not really you would still primarily enter this development through a commercial break.
You do. Yeah. We've got a full access point on our southern end of our project, and then a right in, right out at the northern as you go along Michigan Road. And then on 146th Street, we've got 2 full accesses along 146th Street, and then 1 contemplated right in at the corner of.
Is there a planned traffic light at Hanoverian?
There is. Yes.
Is that already there?
It's not there yet, but there's a future, what they call a warrant, that when the traffic hits the thresholds to require that, then there's a commitment to have that.
So that's where we would see primarily that AM.
Yeah. And that's been contemplated by NDOT and the town for quite some time now. Yeah.
Although, I mean, look, with post-COVID, the AM rush is not what it was.
Maybe not what it was. Yeah.
Matt, a couple of years ago, this council, at Mr. Harris's request, went through the process of a developer-backed bond for the commercial components, the outlots.
Yep.
Does this change impact any of the commercial financing mechanism that the town partnered with Mr. Harris on for that piece?
It does not.
Okay.
The only thing it does do is it actually adds to the commercial base, because the projections that we provide to the town did not include the grocery store element in the central portion of the property. So that 5 acres is actually in addition to the fiscal analysis that we provided. What the town asked us to do, and it was vetted thoroughly, was to provide total future anticipated assessed valuations for each property. And we did that, but those did not include any of the property there that's shaded in green, nor did it include the future grocery, I'm knock on wood, the future grocery site.
Okay, thank you. I thought that was the answer, but I just wanted to, and this comes to us with a favorable recommendation, correct, from the planning commission?
We're happy to say a unanimous recommendation of approval from the planning commission.
Okay. I don't have any other concerns. I'm supportive. I've seen how quickly the Lennar product, the Manchester Square stuff has sold out and gone way up in value. So I think it's something that's needed. To Councillor Melton's point, it's a nice buffer. So
Also, it's not a question, but a comment. Want to give Mr. Harris and Mr. Price some kudos. You know, I've watched the Plan Commission meetings, and I know the HOA director, HOA president for, help me out, Willow Glen, spoke very favorably of not the project. You know, she was kind of neutral on the project, like, look, if I've got to have it, you know, whatever, you know, but she was very favorable on the fact that you guys were trying to do everything you could to work with them. And that's much appreciated. I think that's extremely important. And for her to have stood up at both of the Plan Commission meetings and say such went a long way. So I appreciate you trying to work with the neighbors as much as possible.
any other questions or comments? Any motions?
I'd like to make a motion. Make a motion to approve ordinance 2021-13.
First from Councillor Melton. I'll second from Councillor Trailer. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ordinance 2021-13 is approved by a vote of 4 in favor, 0 opposed. Thank you all.
Mr. President.
Next is a consideration of ordinance for the 2022 fee schedule. This is ordinance 2021-14. This is a first reading. Tammy, how they are.
Council President, members of council, this is the first reading of the fee schedule ordinance for the 2022 year. The fee schedule has been updated in several areas and focused in public safety. So in police, you'll notice that the proposal includes some fees that are waived, such as VIN checks and fingerprint cards. We also removed the gun permit charges from our schedule as there was a state legislative change that removed the fee. We are expected to receive a grant to replace the loss in revenue from the gun permits. In fire, we added fire extinguisher training and updated some CPR fees, and the ambulance fees were also updated. In public safety, the hourly rate for the on-duty police and the EMT firefighters was also increased. There are no other proposed changes at this time.
Tammy, any sense of what the fee increases do in terms of revenue to the town? I can't imagine it's much.
We haven't calculated those, but a lot of the fee increases are due to just inflation and not being updated in several years. And so it's just kind of catching up to the market.
It would be, since this is a first reading, we'll have a second vote. It would be helpful for me if you were able in the next couple of weeks to just produce a quick, like, fee went from this to this, like just kind of quick summary, just so we can get a sense of what it is. I mean, nothing you said there strikes me as anything that would materially hit any organization or individual, but it would be just good to see real quick what it is.
Yeah, in your council packet from Wednesday, it has the red line version that shows the fee changes.
I'll look for that.
Yep.
Any other questions for
Well,
Tammy?
while you're looking for that, just one thing I did want to point out was I was actually expecting a larger increase for the public safety, for the firefighters and the police. I was happy to hear from Joe Keel that, I guess some market comparison was done to see, like, we're not covering the town's full expense of the individual, but we were running into, we were outside of the market for the fee as compared to peers. So I was happy to see that came into the equation. So I was expecting a significantly higher increase than that.
Yes, we do take the surrounding communities into consideration when proposing the fee schedule to council.
Amy, I don't see that in my packet. If you get a chance, could you just send it to me on the side? That way Heather or Tammy doesn't have to recreate it. Any other questions? All right, I'll make a motion to approve. This is actually a motion to introduce 2021-14 on first reading. Second from Councilor Burke. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ordinance 2021-14 is introduced with a vote of 4 in favor, 0 opposed. We'll see you next meeting. Thanks, Tammy. Next, home stretch, I promise. We got a consideration of an ordinance amending the ordinance establishing the compensation to be paid to officials and employees of the town of Zionsville, Indiana for the calendar year 2022. This is ordinance 2021-15 and is a first reading.
Hello.
You're on it, Joe. I like it.
So I'll go with attachment B first. Attachment B is the holiday schedule. And we missed the election dates, the primary and the general when we did it a month ago or so. So amending the attachment B to include the two holidays or the two election days as holidays. The salary ordinance attachment A is kind of the meat of the salary ordinance. The engineering supervisor pay grade on the salary ordinance has been changed from 30 to 32. How that happened was, or pending approval, when we were reviewing the impact of the 4% increase across the board, we discovered that increase in the position of that position's rate would push very close to the maximum. And both the supervisor, myself, and our consultant reviewed the job description again and supported moving that up a pay grade. Doesn't change the pay at all, doesn't change the budget, just gives an opportunity for more of an increase. We will probably have some of those as the years go on. Some we will recommend changing, some we will not. So it won't be the case for all positions. The actual pay rate, as I said, does not change. In addition, in response to the fee schedule update, the line for special event pay for both police and fire have been added, and that's at $50, as previously mentioned. That's it.
Is that changed or is that what's always?
It has been 43, but for some reason it's not been on the ordinance. So we added it to the ordinance and then updated. There was never a line item for it.
Joe, any impact to the budget we just passed related to these changes that you noted there in terms of the salary tweaks and whatnot? I assume they were all anticipated.
Can you say it again?
The budget we passed, I assume, anticipated some of the changes that are showing up in this ordinance. Is that correct?
So the fee schedule, I don't know where that landed as far as the budget is concerned. The like I said, the salary
I guess,
is not impacted, only the pay grade, only the band, minimum, midpoint, maximum. So to answer your question correctly, yes, the budget resulted or reflects the actual salary.
That makes sense.
So this brings it into alignment with what your intention was with the budget.
Again, the salary doesn't change. It's just giving that opportunity as time goes on to grow a little bit more and not bump up to the maximum.
This is a first reading, so we'll vote on this a second time. Any questions, counselors? Any other questions? Yeah.
One quick thing. I noticed in reviewing this, there's some formatting issues and some changes that just need to be made in the body of the ordinance, and that we'll need to clean that up before we bring it back for a final vote. And just make sure that all the language is the same. So I can work with you if you want to share it back with me.
It is exactly the same
Okay,
as
then
was.
then it probably was incorrect before, and
Okay.
when I was reading, it's just like
Happy
formatting,
to-
like some things are underlined, some things are not, some things are like.
Sure.
The section.
Happy to work with
A
you.
little wonky. It's nothing substantive, but we'll want to fix it before final vote.
I like it. Well, unless there's any other questions, I'll make a motion to introduce 2021-15 on first reading.
Second.
Second from Councilor Melton. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ordinance 2021-15 is introduced with vote of 4 in favor, 0 opposed. Thanks,
Awesome.
Joe.
Thank you.
Home stretch. Consideration of an ordinance establishing the 2022 budget for the non-DLGF funds. This is ordinance 2021-16 and a first reading. Tammy, you're back.
Yes. Council President, members of council, this is the first reading of the non-DLGF funds, and the DLGF tax supported funds were adopted in October. And these funds before you tonight are the non-tax supported funds. So in the ordinance attachment, you'll see the projected revenues and the expenses for these funds. In addition to the funds that you saw last year, we also added bond proceeds, lease, and debt funds. Some items of note, the Parks Non-Reverting Operating Fund has increased the programming capacity so that revenues and expenses reflect additional costs for the dog park as well as the Winterfest programs. In the Wastewater Availability Fund, there are capital costs in the budget associated with lift station upgrades as well as phase 1 of the sewer extension. In the golf course, you'll notice that the 2022 budget also reflects the truer revenue and expense numbers based on the inflation and the season length of the 2022 season.
Tammy, where you mentioned Winterfest, which was, I thought was supposed to be self-sustaining. Where are the revenues from Winterfest?
They should be in Fund 211.
Oh, they go into the park non-reverting.
Correct.
operating
And so
fund.
that's for all sorts of programming. There's summer programs, nature camp, as well as Winterfest go into that fund.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
So I have, and probably not going to be a surprise to you, but I have a recommendation is that we add all of the non-DLGF funds to this budget. One thing I was unaware of is that for instance, and I'll have this in my additional items, I'm going to mention something about this, but the town hall renovation or a town hall, what's it?
Improvement.
Town hall improvement fund is not listed on the DLGF budget, nor is it listed on the non-DLGF budget. There's only, you either are DLGF or you're non-DLGF. There isn't a third bucket. Well, the third bucket is one we can't see as town council. So my recommendation would be any fund that is non-DLGF should be in our non-DLGF budget.
And I can address that. So we did go through and clean up. Councilor Garrett had asked us to put together the list of the non-appropriated funds. And there are, and like I said, we have added the bond proceed funds, the lease funds, and debt funds to this list. So you're approving more than you did last year. There are just a few that are not included on it, and that includes the donation fund. We can't really easily predict what's going to come in and out of those donation funds because some of the monies have come in prior years. And then also, you don't know if you get a big donation, then you need to have it appropriated to spend it. And so that might limit some of the departments in getting their tasks approved during the budget year. If that is something that you do want appropriated, then I'm happy to try to put something together, some numbers, and work with the departments to get them on there. But that's typically an example of a non-appropriated fund.
I guess my concern is this. One, we never had two budgets. We've always had, prior to this administration, one budget that showed all of the funds. And the role of this body is to be the fiscal oversight agent for the town. So if there's not a transparency with a public body that's overseeing the funds for the town, even if you're just saying this is dedicated, can only be used for this source, and this is how these funds will be spent, there still needs to be some public accounting given not only to the town council, but to members of the general public. And we've seen this now a couple different times, and I know you're going to talk about specifics, but I, as your advisor to the town council, would have a lot of discomfort in the fact that you're not seeing all the funds, and you're not seeing fund balances, and you're not seeing the transparency of how those dollars are spent. Not to say there's anything going on in the town, I don't want to allege that in any way, but if there was some sort of a misappropriation of funds, and that's how typically they're caught, is because people are looking at these balances and asking questions. So to just say that they're not part of this budget or they don't get appropriated, I mean, I think you can notate dedicated funds that can be spent for specific purposes, but they still tend to show up somewhere. So I guess that's my concern. It just seems like a very doesn't seem very transparent. And in the, the ordinance itself says, in the interest of full transparency or providing greater transparency. So to pick and choose what ones we're going to be transparent on is a concern that I would ask you all to take seriously.
In conversations with Councilor Trailer over email, the donation fund does show up on the reports, both revenues, expenses, as well as cash balance. And he had a question on one of those and we were able to address it. So just because it is not appropriated does not mean that the accounting for it is not presented to council.
The accounting hasn't been provided to the council for several months. So I think that's part of the challenge.
This meeting was our first time getting the monthly financials.
So the monthly financials were provided the June, the September, October, and then you'll be receiving the November. So the monthly process has started.
The June financials.
So June 30th, we had provided some financials during the budget season.
Provided up to the end of June, but not on a monthly. You provided mid-year.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And so the monthly, we're providing that now. We are implementing the new system and getting those financials to you monthly now.
And I do appreciate that, and it's helping a lot. But this, there's just a lot to catch up on, and this is a glaring example of why it's so necessary. And I'm glad we're getting it. But because we've asked for months how we paid for the renovation of the town hall and have not gotten an answer. And I've got some people out there that think I'm a jerk for putting things on social media, but quite frankly, the pressure that social media provides does get me some answers a little faster. Not from you. You've been great as of late for getting me answers quickly, but the mayor, not so much. So transparency is just, there's no trust there. There's no trust there. And I feel like transparency has to be 100%. So, if there's funds out there, we need to know about them.
Can I clarify something? We did get, and this is where I start getting a little frustrated, is the semantics of things. We did get June financials. We got them on September 23rd. So the June financials, when you say we got June financials, someone hears that and says, oh, I got those in June. We got those September 23rd. So it's the frustration you've seen from this board, and I realize we're going through a system transition, is we have had no access to information from January 1st to June 20 or to September 23rd. So I'm glad we're going to start getting a monthly.
January 1st of 2020.
Correct. So that makes me nervous. If there are funds out there that are being spent outside of the purview of, I'm not sure how a non-DLGF fund is not on the non-DLGF list.
Right. And there are funds being spent.
There is the balance that's, I apologize. The cash balance is zero. So there's nothing to appropriate in 2022 for the.
Well, yeah, because we spent $204,000 out of an account that the council didn't have any transparency to, and that the mayor specifically asked for an appropriation for that money. We, as a council, said no. She went and spent it out of this account that you guys aren't disclosing to us. It's bullshit. It's flat out bullshit. So just don't give me any of this stuff. It's transparency. Don't try to walk it around the block. I don't know what it absolutely infuriates me that we were very transparent. We didn't want to spend that money. And the mayor found a way, and I don't blame you because I believe, the mayor is running this show. She has a history with us of omitting information. She left. I wish she were still here so she could answer this, but she's not. And this was hidden from us intentionally. We've been asking for months where the money was spent. I couldn't get an answer. I finally started getting an answer when I put something on Facebook. That's when she started answering me where the money came from. And after I saw it, I don't blame her for not answering me. I wouldn't answer either because I'm not completely sure what she did was legal. There's my 2 cents.
That might have been a nickel. So I think your questions are valid, Brian. If we look at the request, the ordinance in front of us, which is these non-DLGF funds, I think, Tammy, my expectation is that all funds will show up on here. I'm not sure what the donation fund is. I think it'd be helpful to understand, like, are people just writing checks to the town? Like, I'd like a new road, here's $5,000. Is that really what's happening?
We've had some people donate their stimulus money. People donate a lot to the Parks Department, Police Department, K-9 program at the Police Department, the Fire Department. A lot of them are smaller amounts, but as you can imagine, they can accumulate, and we don't know when someone is going to be generous to the town and how much they're going to write ahead of time. It's not a steady income stream by any means, but it does help buffer some of the expenses that the town has and that the departments are aware of.
So is the problem you can't anticipate the revenue and therefore you can't list it in this ordinance?
Yes. So, I mean, we can put a number out there, but we would just need to come before council to do additional appropriations if we receive a more significant amount and things like that. So it's just additional process associated with something that may be small. So that's the reasoning behind that.
So given Councilor Traylor's concerns, which I share, I am willing to put up with additional process if it means additional transparency going forward. If it turns out to be an administrative nightmare, we may tweak that, for minimum thresholds or what may be. But I think as of right now, I would just like to have a better sense of everything coming in, everything being spent, making sure we're all in agreement, because if what Councilor Traylor talked about really did happen, I'm pretty upset about that too. You don't need to answer that, Tammy. That's just a statement.
So Tammy, just real quick, so to clarify, other than these donations, everything else would be included in this non-DLG fund moving forward.
The other exception is grants. And Heather, I don't know, we have a lot of reimbursement grants, like with the police department, with the pullover grant and things like that, that we don't know how much the county is going to interact with us.
So one thing to kind of maybe one thing we could consider is, you can take some of these smaller funds and make a decision as the council, okay, if the expenditure, here's what the fund is for. And if the expenditure is under $10,000, the administration has the ability to move forward without an additional appropriation. You can find I think a balance that you're not, micromanaging the day-to-day activities of the town, which I don't think is anybody's goal.
No.
With things like grants, typically grants can only be, used for a set purpose. So we know when we accept the grant that that's the purpose, but we should still always be getting that fund balance information so you can ensure that the grants, are being spent in the way that they were originally intended, because ultimately the town is responsible for that use, just like we would all see on a private balance sheet. You typically have a grant column. So I think there are ways to be to provide flexibility without micromanaging, but also making sure that everything sort of shows up on the list so that the public is aware that this is all the money that the town is, working with for certain projects and goals.
And assuming almost all the grants are going to be restricted for a project, and it sounds like even most of the donations are restricted, would they not show up in a budget for that particular line item as a projection for the following year?
I mean, it could, but it's the concerns of the current year, the funds that come in during that year that are just harder to project.
Yeah.
All right, well, what I would say is I will make a motion to introduce this 2021-16 on first reading with the caveat that Tammy, I'd love with you to perhaps work with Heather, if you're willing to, Heather, to just talk about how to put oversight without administrative bloat to address valid concerns, I think, about secret accounts that are being spent or have been spent down, maybe too late. But at least to address that concern going forward.
And we can pull in Amy Nooning, who I think will also be important.
Yeah,
for
I think that would be
just
great
work,
to
because I know I've mentioned
bring her in
a
as
few
well.
concerns to Amy recently, Tammy, that
I do want to make one point, if I may. So with the prior budgets, when the budget was passed, and Heather mentioned that there was one budget. If you look at the 2018 budget, there are 6 non-DLGF funds on that budget. We're proposing 26 in 2022. In 2019, there are 7 non-DLGF budgets, and most of those are the TIF funds. And so these funds that everyone's talking about have not been appropriated. They have not been appropriated ever. Last year was the first year that we put a lot of these non-DLGF funds before council to start that transparency process.
We've never had a mayor intentionally go behind the town council's back and spend $340,000. So the additional transparency I feel is necessary.
So I'd made a really long motion there, but I'll shorten it to, I'll make a motion to introduce Heather, if you and Amy Nooning can work with Tammy. I appreciate that. This is ordinance 2021-16 on the first reading. Any seconds for that?
If you're happy with the motion, I'll second.
I don't know if I'm happy with the motion, but
You feel like it meets the
if this
needs of
is
what you would like.
to at least move it forward for a better end goal, yes.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. Is that a second then? All right, we got a reluctant second from Councilor Burke. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No,
Ordinance 2021-16 is introduced with a vote of.
I don't think it is.
Yeah.
You got 3 votes.
Yeah,
You need
so
4.
you need a majority of the council,
Good call.
none of the members present.
Okay. Well, it's not introduced. So does it just auto?
You can just stay on
Continue?
the, yep.
All right.
It doesn't mean it failed. Just failed for lack of a motion, so,
Okay.
or failed for no motion passing, I should say.
Is it auto continued then? Do we need to continue
You
it?
could,
Or is
you
it-
could call for a motion to continue it. And the second motion forward.
What if we don't do anything? Will it just stay on the agenda? All right, I'll ask, are there any motions out there that are interesting?
I think if you go continue it, it won't be continued.
I'll just leave it on there and we'll talk about it next time.
Okay.
Thank you, Tammy. Next, yeah.
I want to be real clear because I acknowledge I kind of lost my cool, but my frustration is not with Tammy. Tammy has been really good about answering my questions. Unfortunately, she has been the messenger at this point. My frustration is not with Tammy, so if it came across that way, I do apologize. My frustration is with the direction she's being given and she is taking.
Yeah, that's fair. Last agenda item for new business is approval of the 2022 schedule of meetings. This is something that, Amy, I appreciate all your help on all of this. We tried to keep this consistent, so it's just the same first Monday, third Monday. There are some meetings that move due to scheduling conflicts, holidays, things like that. But there's a big meeting schedule on there with Plan Commission, BZAs, RDC, CDC, Safety Board, Planning Commission, or Police Commissioners. So I think it's important we still meet twice a month just to make sure that we can address community needs and development needs and things like that. So I appreciate, like I said, Amy, everything you put into that. Any questions on any of that in the meetings?
No questions, but I just would ask that maybe next year we consider just looking at it. Looks like a quarter of these meetings have been shifted. And for transparency for the public, I just would, let's just look at it again, because 25% of the meetings are being shifted, and not everybody's necessarily going to, before every council meeting, take a look at the website and see when the town council meeting is. If we're planning on first Monday, third Monday, every month, 25% of them are shifted. So I have concerns with that. So, but if we can look at that till next year, and maybe consider that, because a lot of the holidays fall on Mondays is the other on the schedule. So,
yeah.
But other than that, I'd like to make a motion. Can I make a motion?
You can, absolutely.
Make a motion to approve the scheduled, I don't have it here. Yeah, scheduled meeting, excuse me.
First from Councilor Melton.
Second.
Second from Councilor Trailer. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Opposed? 2022 schedule of meetings is approved by a vote of 4 in favor, 0 opposed. Any other matters?
There is. So I wanted to clarify kind of what I was talking about before. We've been asking as a council for months how the town hall renovation was paid for, because we were asked for an additional appropriation to pay for it. We as a town council turned down that additional appropriation. The renovation happened anyway. We had no idea where the majority of the funding came from. We've asked for months. Finally, this past week, the mayor provided some answers, not all the answers, but some answers. And I wanted to share those because I've been updating the public on this. Wanted to share what I've found out to date on this. So the total renovation costs were $340,622. Of that, $75,000 came from the MVH fund, the Motor Vehicle Highway Fund, for $75,000. The CCD fund for $28,996.38, and the general fund for $32,482.23. Those three funds are funds that go through the town council that did have appropriations. None of the appropriations were for this town hall improvement or renovation, but there were appropriations that the mayor's administration could move around to pay those amounts. So my issue is not so much with that, because I've asked for, okay, what appropriations were not paid to pay this amount from each of those funds. I don't have those answers yet. Kind of got radio silence on that one. But I wanted to point out that $204,160.67 came from the town hall improvement fund that we were just discussing, that did not show up on the DLGF budget, which we have to report to the state. That's the tax funded accounts. And it was not on the non-DLGF budget. You're either non-DLGF or you're DLGF. There really shouldn't be a third bucket. But this fund exists, and I knew it was out there, but because it didn't show up in either of those budgets, that would say to me that nothing was budgeted to come out of that fund. That's what logic says. If nothing's budgeted, nothing comes out. That's not what happened. The mayor, I don't know why, but for some reason believes that she has the authority to appropriate that money on her own. And that's $204,160.67 that we did not approve, that in my mind should still be in that fund. I pulled up the document where that fund was established, and that fund is for town hall improvements and to pay town hall debt. The mayor took it upon herself to pay for town hall renovation We didn't get an option to pay any town hall debt with it because we weren't asked. That's wrong. And it's not the last you'll hear of that. Well, yeah, I have no idea what the ramification is for that. But it really bothers me that, yeah, after, substantial digging and asking, that's what we found is that essentially, heard our answer, didn't like our answer, went behind our back and did something immoral to get it done anyway. That's it. Thank you.
Brian, do you believe that that town hall fund that you mentioned is an appropriate place for it had it been more transparent? It's possible that it still could have come out of that fund.
It would have had to come through us.
Yeah.
It would have had to come through us for an appropriation. That's yeah. If we were going to approve it, that's absolutely where the money should have come from.
Right. So it's the appropriate place, just that you don't believe the process played out the way.
No, it was completely behind closed doors and we couldn't get an answer as to how it was done or how the thing was paid for. Yeah, it was wrong. Completely wrong.
Well, and I think it's interesting, if the mayor felt you could just do that, why did she come to us and
Right.
ask for the money?
It's a recurring theme. Ask, don't get what you want, and do it anyway.
I appreciate your research on that.
Yeah.
I would continue, if you don't mind, pressing the second piece of that, which was what was spent within the funds that she had the right to move around that was conveyed to the public that was not now available, right? Because every year we do the budget, we're told, right, this budget's going to be for this, this, and this.
Yeah.
And things change and you make changes, but there are things that were conveyed that were supposed to be spent on that we said that's a good idea, that then moved around.
Yeah, and I
something
believe I
else.
copied the council on that email where I asked specifically what the appropriations were that were moved, and she quit responding.
Well, I appreciate you standing on top of that. Any other matters, councilors? Last, we've got approval of claims. Any concerns with anything on claims?
I would make a motion to approve salary, benefits, and debt service claims, nothing more.
Or is salary on claims?
There's payroll on claims.
Well, sensing that we won't get 4 votes if we go of all claims, I'll second that motion. So does that make sense, Amy?
I think so.
Salary.
Benefits and debt service.
Brian, what's your opposition to go ahead? Are there specific things in there other than this question about?
I have no confidence in that we are being adequately disclosed what money is being spent from what funds, where it's coming from. And I think, the fact that last time at claims, I kicked off the 2 items, or I voted no, actually, because there were 2 items that referenced MAC on there. And these claims don't list MAC anywhere. I don't believe that there's no claims for MAC. I think they just said, oh, well, if we put MAC on there, Trailer's gonna, he's not gonna vote for it. So we'll just not use those words. So right now I am struggling to vote for any financial spending before I get some more questions answered.
I don't see payroll or
Yeah.
anything on claims.
President, you got a hand in the back.
Oh, Mr. Lance.
Yeah, I don't either, so I just want to make sure. So I see MVH.
Thank you. I'd just like to remind this council, as you consider your actions tonight and how you'd like to vote, that many of our public contracts require our contractors to carry these expenses. So we have contractors that are carrying 6 figures, hundreds of thousands of dollars, expecting, excuse me, to be paid. And some of them will even be showing up tomorrow to pick up a check. So I certainly understand the frustration, but I think we need to be very fair to some of these contractors and pay them, because they've already invested their own money and we're basically reimbursing them for the work they've done.
Just weighing in on that, the other thing is you're at year end. So for a lot of these folks, they are closing their financial books. That's the only thing I would say, and I'm not advocating a position.
So then I've got some questions then. I would like to know let's see.
Before you do that, are you withdrawing your motion or you're just gonna?
Yeah, I'll withdraw my motion.
While we discuss. Okay.
Thanks, Heather.
Being parliamentary.
I assume, Tammy, you'll probably want to step up because I'm going to ask about several of these expenditures, what they're for. And let's see. On the first page in, let's see, appropriation 101-43101-130. It's consulting, cash management, banking services.
That's a sustainability plan that was presented.
Okay, and that was budgeted?
That was budgeted, yes.
All right. Skip down 3 lines, all of the Milner and Associates.
Under contractual services, yes.
All right, what are those?
It's for temp help, temporary worker.
What department?
Finance.
What is Van Osdal?
Van, it is our printer copier contractor.
Let's see, there was a substantial engineering review from Beam Longest. Was there a particular project that was for?
Who in the crowd?
Yeah.
Phoning a friend.
It could be any number of things.
$61,922. I don't know.
Is that a single claim or is that an amalgamated amount? I don't know, but they are.
It says engineering review 927 to.
What, and that's the 101 fund?
101, yeah.
That would be, I believe, Plan Commission, the Plan Commission, monthly expenses for Plan Commission engineering.
Yeah, they've been busy. Target Solutions Learning LLC, that was in the, I think that was in the fire. Yeah.
It's a training management solution to where they can track all their certifications and trainings.
Okay. What is Aaron Corporation? ERIN in non-departmental land December payment. It's about $7,500.
It's a monthly payment. Amy Lacey might be able to help me out on that. It's a contract that's been ongoing for a while.
Right, the monthly payment for, is it the rail trail? It's when we purchase the rail trail and we do it as a monthly payment.
Let's see. I'm not sure what this stands for. It was Fourth Economy Consulting and Promotions, WR-ROI Strategic Plan Support for $15,000.
Much like Lance described, there are projects out there that have shared costs and costs that are carried. The project that you just described is the Ready Grant. So our team, which includes Noblesville, other communities in Hamilton County, McCordsville, that their total project budget was around $120,000. So we agreed to carry a portion of that project through food and beverage. And food and beverage last year was set up with a certain dollar amount for projects related to the gateway. Ready Grant is a part of the gateway.
All right. Those are my questions. I'm done.
Your questions answered to like, I know not all your questions. Let me rephrase it, but are your claims questions answered?
I suppose. I don't feel good, but I understand where Mr. Lance is coming from, and I don't feel like, I honestly, if we did not approve claims, I don't feel like we'd put them in that position. I think it's the mayor. Yeah, if you don't build trust, it's not on us. Yeah.
That's fair.
Move to approve claims.
Got approval from Councilor Burke.
Second.
Second from Councilor Melton. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Claims are approved by a vote of 4 in favor, 0 opposed. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second, Councilor Trailer. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion adjourns by a vote of 4 in favor, 0 opposed. The next regular town council meeting is scheduled for Monday, December 20th, 2021 at 7:30 a.m. in the Zionsville Town Hall. Notice will be posted in compliance with Indiana open door law. Thank you all.